Good evening, everybody, and welcome into another episode of New England Sports Weekly. And I apologize for the late start there, as don't know what was going on with the website tonight, but it took a while to load. So I was here. I was here at 8 o'clock. It was just loading and loading and loading, and I was starting to get frustrated there. But nonetheless, we're up, we're running, and we're ready to roll tonight. So I hope you had a good weekend and good week between when I spoke to you last. As it's been a little kind of warm here it's been odd actually. It's been some nights in the 30s, some days in the 70s and 60s. So it's been beautiful, but kind of weird fall as we're into October. We're what, on the 12th, so couple weeks away from Halloween, 2.5 weeks here. So we're right in the smack dab of spooky season, if you will. So it definitely is interesting, but nonetheless, it is going to be a jam-packed show here as always. Right in the heart of football with the Patriots improving to 2-3 on the season after they beat the Lions. So it's going to be a lot about that week. Bailey Zappe, the future, what's going on. We're going to dive into a lot of this here. Moving on, as we will jump right into things here. We won't dispense with any more. It's going to be the out of the box segment, which maybe our friends at 47 Brand, where I got this beautiful new throwback Pat the Patriots sweatshirt. It looks like the throwback jerseys themselves with the shoulder pad. Well, not pads itself, but the shoulder pad striping that they have. Beautiful, so comfortable, and looks amazing. So 47 Brand, if you want to hit me up, I will be happy to have you as a sponsor here. Nonetheless, though, we will dive right in as the Patriots played the Detroit Lions, and they beat them handily 29-0 as they held off Jared Goff in the number one offense. I say that with air quotes because they were scoring the most points in the league, but I don't know if I would actually, if you made me rank all the offenses in the NFL, if they were the true number one. But nonetheless, the stats say they are scoring the most points in the league. And the Patriots and Bill Belichick, who always seem to have the magic touch when it comes to shutting down Goff and making him look pedestrian, did just that this weekend, and had a little bit of help from PC Principal himself, going for 4 to 5 fourth down attempts and going over on all of them. So the Patriots had a little bit of help on their end, but it is going to be interesting going forward here with this Patriots team, as the defense did look pretty sharp. Rhamondre Stevenson, who is basically going to be the lead back now, as Damian Harris had to leave with a hamstring injury. So it appears that he's going to miss multiple weeks, although I think he was at practice. Yeah, I believe he was at practice today. So that was interesting from that standpoint of things for Damian Harris. But it's going to be the Rhamondre show moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future, until Harris is back up and running, literally. And Bailey Zappe got his first ever career start. We'll dive into that more here. What had 188 yards and 1 touchdown, steered the ship in the right direction. So a lot to break down there as the Patriots dispatch the Lions and look forward to a meeting with the Cleveland Browns on 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. And of course, the Boston Bruins are underway as they have dropped the puck on a new season, and they're in period number 2 as we speak. And we will break down that season moving forward and what to look forward to and the big storylines of this season. And one of those right off the bat is their superstar winger in David Pastrnak, who is in his last year of his contract. And of course, the Bruins are hopefully going to sign him to a long-term deal. And of course, there have been reports out there lately that there's been no deal reached, but both sides are trying to work towards an agreement, trying to work towards a deal that would keep him in Boston for the foreseeable future. We'll see. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed right now. We'll see if they actually come to an agreement, but nothing at this point in time other to report than the Bruins and Pasternak's representatives are working towards trying to work out a deal for Pasta. And in other contractual news, as far as the Boston sports landscape is concerned, Xander Bogaerts is not technically a free agent because he cannot opt out until after the postseason is over. But nonetheless, the Red Sox have had multiple meetings with Xander Bogaerts right after the end of the season. So they are trying to prioritize Xander Bogaerts, and hopefully we'll hear good news on that front, as though it didn't seem like it was going to be positive here. It seemed like he might opt out, and this might have been the last that we ever saw Xander. Now, I'm not saying that I'm 75, 80% confident. I'm more like 57, 55%, but at least the needle's moving in the right direction for the Red Sox. Maybe they got a fire lit under their ass. Maybe it was John Henry going to Hein Bloom and telling him, you better sign this guy. Who knows? But nonetheless, it seems as though they are trying to work things out there with Xander Bogaerts. And of course, the NBA season is just right around the corner as well. The Boston Celtics looking to defend their Eastern Conference title. So things are ramping right up here in the Boston sports scene for everybody. Now, of course, we will dive right into the main dish here, if you will. And that is the New England Patriots, who took down the Detroit Lions in week number 5 and improved to 2-3 on the season. And of course, everything went very smooth here for the Patriots, as far as best you could ask for, with them playing with their third string quarterback and really kind of with one hand tied behind their back from that standpoint. But they played very well, sound offensively. Didn't ask Zappe to do too much. He did get the one touchdown to Jacoby Myers late in the game. And of course, Rhamondre Stevenson had probably his best game as a pro. He didn't have any touchdowns, but he just took that rock and ran it. Had 25 rushing attempts for 161 total yards. So he he had the 25 rushes, and including his catches, he had a total of 161 yards on the night. So Rhamondre Stevenson, of course, is going to be leaned a lot more now that Damian Harris is out with his Achilles injury, or hamstring injury, I should say. Geez, not Achilles. I was thinking those ligaments. But with the hamstring injury that he's suffering from, he is going to be out for multiple weeks, the reports are saying, as far as that front for Damian. Although he was spotted at practice today, but it wasn't a lot of heavy workload. It was so of course that kind of throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into that. But I mean, I don't think they're going to chance this here. I think probably tomorrow. I don't think Friday you'd hear anything, but I doubt he's going to play this game. So we're going to see a lot of Rhamondre. And this is and don't get me wrong, I really do like Damian Harris. Damian Harris is a very, very good back in his own right. Without Stevenson, I mean, I would still feel okay, or no, better than okay. I still would feel good with this running game. But with Rhamondre Stevenson, I just think he's another level above Damian Harris. He's got more explosion into his game. He's got a little bit more speed. He's got a little bit more elusiveness in his game. But of course, he's more, to me, he's more well-rounded as a runner because he's got power because he's 220, 228. So he's that kind of rare combination of a big, strong, fast, but also elusive back where he can beat you in multiple ways. And I've since coming into the season, I was really, really hoping that this is the direction that they would go with. Now, the first couple of weeks, it was more of a 50-50 split. Now, obviously, a little more out of necessity last week that you can't avoid that because of the injury, but still, maybe this just forces the Patriots into realizing, okay, this is our bell cow. And of course, you don't want to run him every single snap. You don't want to just burn out his legs early on in his career. I'm not saying that. So it would be nice to get Damian Harris back. But my point is that maybe instead of a 50-50 split, we're getting a 65-35 split here. Putting more work on the plate of Rhamondre Stevenson instead of like giving him every other. You have him run 2 series in a row, then maybe give him a series off with Damian Harris, or maybe just a couple, like 5 plays or so, and then bring him in. But the point being is that he is a major weapon, going to be a major weapon moving forward for this team. I honestly do believe that, and not just from the running game, but also from the passing attack. And this is where I think Bailey Zappe, and whenever Mac Jones comes back, he's going to be that perfect outlet for those 2 quarterbacks, as far as if Jacoby Myers and excuse me, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton, who had made his debut last week, Nelson Aguilar, depending on how things go with him, Devontae Parker. If those guys are covered up, you need that safety valve. I just think it's perfect for him. And I also think he's good enough where you can draw up some routes for Rhamondre Stevenson. And of course, last year, Rhamondre ended up having 14 receptions for 123 yards. He's already at 13 receptions for 71 yards on the season. So he's already on pace to blow past what he had last year. Of course, last year was his rookie year, but still, point being is that he is in line to have a lot of work coming up here, especially against Cleveland, where they're going to have a lot of ball control going against a ball control offense in themselves, keeping it away from Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So want to keep the ball out of their hands as much. And I think obviously the Patriots in the matchup last year, and we'll get into this a little bit more when you start to break down the Browns, but this is a guy that he's just going to be an absolute stud moving forward. And another stud that was on display last weekend with Matthew Judon. Matthew Judon is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, just kind of like he was last year. So, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic because we saw the story last year where Matthew Judon, there was nothing official, but he did nothing official during the season. He did end up kind of admitting basically that he did end up having a rib injury that he had last year. So he was dealing with injuries last season towards the back end of the season. So that's why we saw that production tail off, because last year we were saying the same thing. This year, I think he's even found another gear, which is hard to believe just because he was so good last year. But so far, he has a sack in 5 consecutive games, 6 overall for the Patriots, and it set a team record for most consecutive weeks with a sack. So he's just absolutely on fire. And it's not just the sacks, it's the pressure. He's there helping in the run game. He's just all over the field. But of course, the where it helps the most is him in the pass rush sense. And he's just absolutely been a game wrecker. So it's just been so good to see this. And we just hope that this year everything kind of continues moving forward positively and that he can stay healthy. Because if he stays healthy, I mean, the floor is a all-pro type of season, the way that it's trending right now. That's what the floor is looking like. The ceiling of this is Defensive Player of the Year. So I know that's going to be hard because there are a lot of good defensive players out there. We all know Aaron Donald, the 3-time reigning Defensive Player of the Year. He's out there, but I mean, it's not crazy to think that right now, but it's just a matter of staying healthy and not having a repeat of last year where dealing with injuries and kind of tailing off and really not making that impact down the stretch when you needed him most, especially against like teams like Buffalo. That's where it was really glaring, was when at the time we were kind of left wondering what was happening. And then there were a couple games where his snap count went down. He was on the sidelines. He wasn't back in the locker room, and you're like, what's going on here? But I think now that we kind of knew he was dealing with something, that this year, if he stays healthy, especially for those games against the Buffalo Bills, when you have to face the Cincinnati Bengals and the Vikings, who have really good offenses, and obviously Buffalo is the team that I picked to go Super Bowl, and obviously not alone. Probably 80% of the country picked them from the AFC. Point being that a lot of people picked them. So we all know how good Buffalo is at the point. So if you have Judon ready for those games, unlike you did last year, or I should say fully healthy for those games, then we'll see if maybe that makes a little bit of a difference, although it's going to be a very tall task. But the point being here is that the defense looked very good. You got another pick from Jack Jones. So the 4th-round pick is looking like they might have found something. They might have found another gem. So maybe Belichick just shouldn't draft corners in the 2nd round. that's his blind spot when it comes to a few positions, but corner and wide receiver mainly. But maybe he just should stop drafting corners and wide receivers in that round and focus on other positions. But the point being is that he found another gem here, and at least that's the way it's looking. He's had back-to-back good weeks. Now, obviously, he hasn't been perfect, because that Green Bay game, the second half, Green Bay did come back, and they did end up putting up points on the board and moving the ball on that secondary. But you've seen some positives there with Jack Jones, that maybe you actually have a legitimate starting caliber corner that you were drafted that can be very good and dependable. At least that's the way that it looks. And of course, the rest of that secondary with Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, Devin McCourty, and the other 2/3 of the Jones brothers, especially in Jonathan Jones, everybody's looking like they're contributing in that secondary, making plays. And this was kind of where I had a little bit of a worry, more on the corner end of it, because you don't have the big, strong, physical corner like you have when these Patriots defenses have absolutely been dominant, like Stephon Gilmore, Aqib Talib, Darrelle Revis, Ty Law, Asante Samuel, even to a degree. But they've always had that number one big physical corner. So maybe Asante, not the physical part, but you know what I mean. But they just have a lineage of that. And even last year with J.C. Jackson. So they've always had that number one guy they can count on to lock guys down or be that ball hawk that can cover as well. So it was just kind of going to that unsure spot, because Jack Jones is the biggest one out of the group. And I say biggest in what he's like 5'11". He's somewhere between 5'10" to 6 foot. So he's not the most physically imposing guy in height wise, but still he gets the job done, and he's played very, very well. So I'm pleased with what's happening there. So altogether, the defense just came out and played against Detroit. They shut down this Lions team. And so it was really, and then Nick Folk came in and as always has been nails. So it was defense running and special teams that really helped them win. And again, poor coaching on the side of Detroit. It's just Dan Campbell. God, you love him for all the sound bites, and he seems like he's a good dude, but he's just Captain Hardo, and I just think that wears thin throughout an NFL locker room. And You just saw that he was overmatched by Belichick, had 4 or 5 fourth down attempts, was over on all of them. So he really, really, really screwed himself on those ones. There were some times when he could have taken the points. I mean, in reality, were they going to win this game? Probably not the way that it was going. But still, I mean, it was just anything but a passable coaching experience for those Lions. So, man, but it was nice to see the Patriots go out and just take care of business, because there was a little bit of, all right, it might be Detroit, but these Lions are a little friskier than in the past, because they did get Amon-Ra St. Brown back. So they did have one of the better young emerging weapons in football was back, but they were able to keep him pretty quiet on the night. And of course, you didn't have any DeAndre Swift, so you didn't have to worry about him, although Jamal Williams is a good back, but they were able to shut him down for the most part. So the Patriots really played pretty well. And of course, the elephant in the room that we have to address is Bailey Zappe. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean from elephant in the room. Of course, all the talk lately, or the last 4 days, has obviously been Zappe hour, Zappe fever, however you want to term it, is just absolutely taken over in New England. And of course, the big conversation is there a QB controversy at this time? Because Mac Jones still not on the IR, dealing with that high ankle sprain. He's not gotten off to the best of starts in 2022. He has 2 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions on the season so far. So again, was not off to the hottest of starts to begin with. So of course, you had some of the people in Patriots country getting a little wound up and a little irritated already with Mac as far as the start of the season. And of course, this is where I think all the Mac haters have started to really show their true colors, if you will, because don't get me wrong, I love what Bailey Zappe has done. Bailey Zappe is more than competent. I was a little scared when he had to come into that Green Bay game. I just thought, all right, here we go. Strap it in and hope for the best and just hope they don't get absolutely annihilated. But of course, he comported himself very well in that game and was more than passable. And then, of course, he had a whole week of preparation against the Detroit Lions, went out there, completed a lot of his passes. A lot of them were just kind of quick out routes or just some slants or some goes or some posts. I mean, they weren't asking anybody to do anything too extravagant out there. And he was able to drive. He was putting his hands at 10 and 2 and drove that car all the way from the grocery store back home. Nothing. He didn't go and do anything exciting, but he got it home and got what he needed. And the Patriots won. And I know that was a boring analogy, but it was a boring game plan for what they had for him. So that's the point. It's a bit of a boring analogy. So when it comes to Zappe, though, like I said, I'm not ready to all of a sudden just jump full throat, full bore onto this Bailey Zappe train. I'm not. I like what he's done, and I think the Patriots have found a pretty good backup in this case. But let's remember, this is Bailey Zappe's first ever career start. It was the 7th quarter of his NFL. He's only played 7 quarters in his NFL career, but now people want to just all of a sudden say, "Oh, this is like 2001 with Brady and Bledsoe all over again." Here we go. Bailey Zappe, the 4th round pick out of Western Kentucky, is going to come in and he's going to dethrone Mac Jones, the Alabama product. the second in Rookie of the Year voting, and it's gonna be like Brady all over again. He's just gonna take over, lead the Patriots to the playoffs, and see if they can win some Super Bowls. Okay, let's. And I know I kind of got a little carried away there at the very end of that, but you all have heard those fans out there that are comparing it to 2001 from the standpoint that it's like, okay, you had this established quote unquote veteran in Mac Jones, just like you had the established veteran in Drew Bledsoe, and then you had in Brady's case, second year quarterback out of Michigan, and then this year a rookie in Bailey Zappe. Now, I'm not going to say that it's not ever going to happen again, that it can't happen this time around. But my God, I think some people have just gone off the deep end with this. You just got to reel yourself back in. Yes, it's a very good story, and I feel good now about the Patriots' backup position. Of course, you don't know if he can win in a shootout or anything like that, but he's the backup, for Christ's sake. I mean, Mac Jones was drafted in the first round. Whether you like the poor start that he's gotten off to this year, and I've come to love Mac. It took me some time to kind of turn around and become a Mac fan, but I mean, I'm in the Mac fan category. I mean, he showed me a lot last year. And to say after Mac has only played, what was it, 2.5 games, or what, pretty much 3 games, because it was the last play of the Baltimore game that he get hurt on. But to say that you're after 3 games, you're ready to just say goodbye, Mac. All right, see you later. It's Zappe time. I mean, come on now. Let's get serious here. Let's get serious. Bailey Zappe, as good as his story has been, what have they asked him to do? It's not like they opened up the playbook like they did to Mac Jones. Now, I know that it's not like they played a nasty trick on both of these quarterbacks and said, oh, hey, Mac Jones, here's this very, very, very complicated playbook. Hey, Bailey Zappe, here's this one other completely different playbook over here with all the easy stuff. No, it's all the same goddamn playbook. It's all the same thing. It's just they're spoon feeding Bailey Zappe. You have to, the old saying, you got to crawl before you walk. You got to walk before you run. That's what's happening with Bailey Zappe, folks. So before you're like, well, he completed all the passes and he was able to roll out and he's more athletic. Have you forgotten? Have you seen? Listen, but neither one of these quarterbacks is going to be confused for Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or even Aaron Rodgers. None of them are going to be in that category of these super athletic quarterbacks. But Mac Jones has had times this year where he's actually picked up some decent yardage with his legs. He doesn't have cement in his shoes, but he's not going to win any 40. He's not going to win any 40-yard dash time against a wide receiver or anything like Lamar could. But I mean, he's more athletic than you think. So I think they're comparable on the athletic. I mean, in the scale of like, if we're doing like a Madden rating, I think they're probably both like athleticism wise, probably in like the high 50s, low 60s as far as that whole category goes. But you catch it there. If they have some athleticism, but we're not talking about super athletes here. So I think that part's gotten overblown, because I think everybody saw that pass where Zappe rolled out to his right, and I think it was Hunter Henry. He hit him on that 11-yard pass. Oh, Mac Jones couldn't have done that. Mac Jones has done things like that. He's done that. And in the playbook, like I said, they're spoon feeding Zappe. They're not giving him everything all at once. You see, they were going to be a run heavy team anyways to begin with, just because, I mean, until they can prove that if maybe Tyquan Thornton and maybe some of these other receivers that they have, until they can prove, all right, maybe we have something in these receivers that we can open it up, that it was going to be more run heavy than it was anything else with this offense moving forward. Not because Matt can't handle it, but I don't know if they have the right weapons and the right coaching. So what you have of this offense, you're spoon feeding it to Zappe. You're not going to give him all whatever, if it's 300 pages, you're not going to give him all 300 pages. You're going to give him like 20 pages at a time and be like, here, study these right now. These are the base offense. And I know that's what you do they're in training camp and all that crap. But of course, they're not going to they'll slowly, if depending on how long he has to start until Mac is ready, they'll slowly just kind of give him a few more. And then if you see some more confidence, maybe you feel better about giving him another 20 pages in addition to what he already has. Who knows? I'm just saying, you catch what I'm trying to say here is that they're not giving everything to Zappe all at once, and people want to just misconstrue that Zappe went up there and put up 188 yards and 1 touchdown, and he went toe-to-toe with Rodgers, which is good. I'm a Patriots fan, so I'm not going to argue if our third string backup, who has to save our ass until Mac Jones is back, is out there playing well. I'm not going to complain. So don't take this as me being pissed off or angry that, I hate Zappe. No, that is not the case. I love the kid. And like I said, I'm not putting my head in the sand that, there could never be a QB controversy. Oh, no, it's just Max to just run away with and hide for 10, 12 years now. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that it's year freaking 2. Year number 2 of Mac Jones. And we're just forgetting what happened last year. Forget what happened. Don't remember that he had 3,800 yards and had 23 touchdowns and 11 picks and took this team to the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to bury my head in about the end of the season, because I know people love to bring up he had 10 touchdowns, but 11 interceptions, 10 touchdowns and what was it, 11 picks, 10 touchdowns, or 10 touchdowns to 9 picks, something along the lines like that down the stretch. It wasn't great as far as, he had what 23 picks and 23 touchdowns, 13 picks. The point being, I'm not going to get bogged down in all the numbers here. The point being, I know that he ended up having a lot of interceptions down the stretch, but he was a rookie, for Christ's sake. He doesn't have any top tier weapons. He doesn't have. Well, I mean, last year he had Josh McDaniels. I was going to say the coordinator. He doesn't have a coordinator, but let's talk about last year. But you catch the drift. As he was a rookie, didn't have the best weapons to work with, and the competition they faced was very stiff. They had 2 games against freaking Buffalo last year. You played Indy, who I know Indy this year is a dumpster fire, but last year when New England played them, they were in the mix for a playoff spot. So New England had a tough back end of the schedule, just like they do this year. So to say, just to poo-poo whatever Mac did last year, like, this is who he is now. He's just an interception machine. He's going to make bad choices all the time now. It's just ridiculous. I don't get why we're so ready to move on from Mac right now. And people want to bring up, he's got the tennis player attitude. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? If the guy can play quarterback, put him in at quarterback. And he proved last year that he can play at quarterback for the Patriots. So don't give me the just stop whining and bitching about what's happened over this 8 games here since 8 or 9 games that's happened. Yes. Am I just going to settle for mediocrity? No, of course not. But for Christ's sake, we're talking about Max, his 20 or 21st game in the NFL, if you include the playoffs? Yeah, 21 games. If you include last year's playoff loss to the Bills. It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. 21 games. 21 games. And people are acting like he's friggin' Jamarcus Russell or Mitch Trubisky or some other bust that you want to throw out there. Johnny Manziel he's not Justin Fields, for Christ's sake. Justin Fields, who, I will fully admit, I wanted him last year in the draft, and I don't think he's in the best position out in Chicago just because they had to fire. They fired their coach. They brought in another one. So that's never good, bringing in another head coach in a situation in his second year. And the Bears, it's not like they loaded up their offense either. And Justin Fields isn't doing himself any favors, but whole other conversation. The point being is that Mac proved himself last year over the whole body of it. And I know the back end of it wasn't anything that you want to write home about, but you can't just ignore, you can't choose to ignore the bad half, but you also can't choose to ignore everything good that he did as well. And we're talking about a backup as well. And this isn't even like because we all know the Brady story, because Brady had to sit behind, it was the 4th-string quarterback in 2000. Before 2001 came along, he proved to the coaching staff, okay, you're the number 2. Worked his way up to the number 2. But they had a whole year to evaluate Brady. A whole year. This is Zappe's coming up on his 6th game ever of his pro career. So, if Mac comes back and he has 3-4 bad games here in a row, okay, then maybe we can start to have that Bailey Zappe conversation. But I'm not going to ride Zappe until the wheels fall off and then bring Mac back. No, I think this is where it's Mac's team for now. And I say for now because I'm not going to say 10 years, lock it up. No, I'm not going to be that naive. But Mac proved himself last year. And even though people want to give him crap for the 5 interceptions that he has this year already, that Pittsburgh game, they started to move the ball better. Still had a lot of work to do. The Baltimore game, they were getting chunk plays down the field to Devontae Parker, to Nelson Aguilar, who literally fumbled that game away. Yes, there were the bad throws that Mac made in the end zone and into that quad coverage. Yes, I'm not excusing him from this. He needs to improve. But all young quarterbacks need to improve. All of them do. All quarterbacks do. Okay, so if Buffalo, after they played 16 games at the time. So, because Josh Allen started going off in 2020. Remember, Josh Allen was drafted in 2018. Or was it or 2017? My apologies. And the first 3 years of his career were bad. Very bad. Let me just pull up looking at one thing here for Josh Allen. So 2018. Okay, so 2018 was his first year. Yeah. Okay, so the first 2 years of his career, so not 3. So the first 2 years, because he was drafted in 2018, the first 2 years were just awful. He had a completion percentage of 52.8 in his rookie year. Completion percentage of just 58. And remember, the league average is what? It's 65, 62%, 63%. So he was just below league average. And in his rookie year, had 12 picks. His second year, he had 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and then he started to blow up. But this was his first couple of years, he was throwing a lot of picks. He was inaccurate. He was the definition of a project quarterback. So, and now Josh Allen's had completion percentages of 69%, 63, 66%. The man has proven himself that he's not a bust. So what I'm getting at here with Mac Jones is that the comparison with Josh Allen is if you ask Buffalo fans after 2 years, they probably were ready to just ship him out of town and be like, all right, this guy ain't it. He ain't it at all. He's just not gonna do it. This was a waste. And what happens? But Josh Allen's turned himself into a top 5 MVP caliber quarterback. Now, am I saying that's what's going to happen with Mac? I don't know. I don't know. But I think he's got the tools to be a top 12, a top half quarterback in this league, one that you can win with. Am I saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer or anything? No, I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But the point here is that you have a young quarterback that's shown potential, and people just want to throw him out with the bathwater after a slow start to the season. All right, you have fun with that after you have your fun ride with Bailey Zappe for the next couple weeks, where it's okay. We had the Cleveland Browns. The Browns don't have a everyday quarterback that you can really trust. I like Jacoby Brissett, but he's a spot starter. And because of the suspension to Deshaun Watson, he's going to be starting a lot of games until he comes back towards the end of this year. You have the Chicago Bears, who are putrid. So there's going to be 2 games where you're playing some mediocre teams, especially the Bears. The Bears are bad. Then you got the Jets for 2. You have the Colts, who I thought were going to be a playoff team. I mean, they still could technically be one, but I thought they were going to be a more competitive team, but they really have not shown that at all. So you have a softer schedule. So, okay, so if Mac is, let's just say that Mac was out for a while, or if you, in this theoretical world that you chose Zappe over Mac, okay, you ride the Zappe train for the next couple weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Okay, what happens when we get to some real competition? What's going to happen? Or hell, maybe Zappe gets exposed even against the horrible teams. Maybe he gets exposed against the Bears, for Christ's sake. I mean, I honestly don't think that would happen, just because I don't think the coaching staff would let it happen, because the Bears are just so bad they can probably run over them with Rhamondre. And then the offense is so putrid that Belichick would probably force some turnovers with the Bears. But you catch the drift. It's just you're relying on a unknown backup quarterback where everybody wants to say, this is going to be Tom Brady again. Belichick's done it once. He could do it again. Where I'm not willing to bank on lightning striking again and not hitting just the lottery, but this is like hitting the all-time lottery. When the Patriots put in Tom Brady and this whole run happened when he came in for Drew Bledsoe after Mo Lewis just absolutely blasted him. That was like the Patriots winning the all-time lottery of $1 trillion. It ain't ever going to happen again, at least not to that extent. Maybe you have something where it lasts for 5 years. Something like this happens, and then it's over. I don't know. I'm just saying we're asking for a lot in this case, and we're putting way too much on this kid's plate. And I'm just getting sick of just the overhype, and I personally like Bailey Zappi and all the interviews that he's done. And it's not everybody, not all the media is doing it, but there are certain personalities, certain sections of it that are doing it. And it's just like, let's pump the brakes. It's his first start. And it's just driving me nuts. Driving me absolutely fucking nuts. It's just like, let's put Mac in, and then he struggles, then we can have this conversation. We can actually seriously have this conversation. If he continues to struggle for 4 or 5 weeks, then we can start to have this. But my God, people are just reading way, way, way too much into things. And man, like I said, I'm actually happy that things are going well with Bailey Zappi at this time. I'm happy because obviously they won 29-0. I'm not sitting there like, Bailey Zappi's in there. I'm so mad that he won the game, or I'm so mad that the Patriots went toe to toe with Aaron Rodgers and Zappi. I'm not mad. I'm actually not mad at it. I'm not mad at Zappi. I'm not mad at the Patriots winning with him. I hope that they can win all the games with Zappi. Of course I do. Where my kind of frustration is coming from is just the overhype and the forcing of a controversy, the absolute forcing of it. Well, maybe there's another time where Belichick can come up with this. Okay, let's just calm down. So, so there's a lot to that. And like I said, hopefully this coming week against the Browns, if Zappe starts, I hope for more of the same. I really do. I'm not trying to sit here and say I hate this. I love it. I love it. It's a great. Don't get me wrong. It's a great story what he's done. It is awesome. It's awesome. I mean, I hope from the standpoint that it continues. If Mac is out, if Mac's out, then I hope it continues this way. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, they have to take on the Cleveland Browns this coming week. In Cleveland is, of course, they're in a precarious situation as they're 2-3. As we just kind of talked about them a little bit, they are without Deshaun Watson, who was suspended for the year, or not the year, for 11 games, I should say, because of his transgressions off the field with massage therapists and just the disgusting things that he's done and the creepiness and the creep that he is. So they are relying on Jacoby Brissett, the former Patriots 4th round pick backup, who's bounced around the league in a few stops. So the Browns, who had some playoff hopes after they traded for Watson and obviously waiting for what was going to come down from the league, they obviously right now are kind of in a wait and see mode right now. And of course, with their season pretty much, I shouldn't even say wait and see. I mean, at this point, without Deshaun Watson, they're kind of in the, all right, well, this is playing for next year after we get Watson back. But of course, what you have to worry about with this Browns team is that double-headed monster that they have with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, it can just absolutely tear you apart. And of course, the Patriots have been susceptible to the run, and Nick Chubb can absolutely destroy you. In the games that I've seen with Chubb this year, and I've watched him plenty enough that you just watch him finish through runs. He absolutely demolishes you. He's a bowling ball once he gets going. But the thing is, he's not just this big, powerful runner. He's he can also evade you as well. I mean, he's not Barry Sanders or anything, but he can avoid you. He can sidestep you, but he'll run you over first. But he is outside of Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry, he might be the best pure running back in the league, because Derrick Henry and Taylor are the two best pure running backs. Of course, we have guys like Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, those kind of guys that are great running backs and great receiving backs as well. But just pure runners, those Nick Chubb is right at the top of the list. And man, he can just roll you over. And that's just where, if you don't have Lawrence Guy back, and Christian Barmore I haven't seen him involved in as much of the run stopping. And of course, I know he's more the pass rush type of not specialist, because he's out there for a lot, but he's more effective with the pass rush than he would be run stopping, at least at this early part in his career. But he hasn't popped as much. So if you don't have Guy to team up with Devon Godchow and with Christian Barmore, then that does weaken it a little bit here. So that has me worried. So you're going to have to load this box, but you can't just forget about Amari Cooper, because he surprisingly has a pretty good chemistry with Jacoby Brissett. So you can't just let him just roam free. So this is going to be a situation where this defense is really going to have to play the run. This is going to be the best running attack they faced all year, because Pittsburgh, even though they have Najee Harris, who individually I love Najee Harris, but I just think right now that Pittsburgh team is a mess, and he's kind of stuck in no man's land, at least behind a subpar offensive line. So the Patriots just haven't had that. Well, I take that back. They've only had one real test against the run, and that was Baltimore. And it was more against the quarterback than it was the actual running game, because that was J.K. Dobbins' first game back. I like Dobbins, but I mean, he was just coming back after his first game after major injury from recovering from last year. So, I mean, this is going to be the first like big time running back that they've had to stop, that he's absolutely a freight train. So we'll see how that kind of all goes. But of course, on the other side of the ball, you have Rhamondre Stevenson, who in his own right had a breakout game in his own right last week. And of course, in the game last year against the Browns, at that point, he had his career day where it was over 80 yards rushing and a couple touchdowns. So he had a great game against Cleveland last year. So the Patriots can run over this Cleveland Browns team as well. So it's gonna be a matter of both of these teams trying to control the ground with their running game here. And of course, with Bailey Zappe, it's just going to be ask more of the same. Just keep spoon feeding him a little bit more of the offense, and you're just asking him to do some simple things and just not turn the ball over. And if you can do that against this Cleveland team, who Jacoby Brissett has had issues later on in games. That's why Cleveland's been in a lot of these games. They just haven't been able to close it out. Just i.e. that Jets game that they had earlier in the year. That's case number one right there. So it just hasn't been the smoothest here for Jacoby Brissett. So hopefully the Patriots can take advantage of a short field if they get some turnovers here and get some points on the board. I don't think we're talking about a utter blowout or anything from this standpoint against the Browns, but I think the Patriots will take this one. I'm going to say they win this one 20-13 over the Browns. Patriots get a late touchdown in this game to take the lead and get back to 500 on the season since that game against Pittsburgh. So I do like the Patriots in this one. I just think Cleveland has made some mistakes late in games, and with how well this Patriots defense has been playing lately, I do like what I've seen from them moving forward. So I really do like what I see as far as defensively in the running attack. Like I said, it's just going to be a matter of when is Matt going to be able to come back, and can Bailey Zappe keep them in these games if need be. Now over to the ice is the Boston Bruins are starting things off for the 2022 campaign as they're in DC to take on the Capitals tonight. Can't give you the play-by-play because I want to keep my stream up and the video up on YouTube. So we won't say exactly what's going on, but they're in DC tonight, and we'll just say things are going pretty good for the Boston Bruins. So the Bruins, as we mentioned, coming into this year, there have been really two big headlines. Now, before the season started, remember they are without two of their stars in Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy. So those are two big blows. You get one of your best scorers and better all-around players in Brad Marchand, who's been great, and he's out until probably December, early January. And then, of course, now you're going to be without Charlie McAvoy, who's one of the best young all-around defensemen in the game. His offense is improving along with the already great defense that he has. So they're without two of their bigger pillars. And then, of course, David Pastrnak and his contract situation is also looming over this team, because David Pastrnak is, what is he, 25 years old, 26 years old? He's still very, very young. So he's the cornerstone of your franchise, basically. Him and Charlie McAvoy are the two players that you have to make sure that you keep locked up long term. Yeah, he's 26 years old. 26. And this is a guy that last year scored over 40 goals. He came close to 50 goals a couple of years ago, back in the 2019-2020 season. This is the guy that since he's played 70 or more games has averaged at least, of course, throw out the COVID year in 2020, 2021. So if you look at a full season, he's averaged no less than 34 goals a year, and he's in a full season, he's averaged no less than 36 assists a year. So we're talking about a guy that scores 77, 75, 95, 80 points. This is a guy that scores multiple points, is one of the better all-around scorers in the league. This is a guy that you have to have locked up long-term. You give him a 10-year deal that gets him to 36. I mean, he's the cornerstone of the franchise. Make no bones about it. This is a guy that you have to have locked up. And it doesn't seem like the franchise and the player are far off on it either, because you can tell in like some of these negotiations, a la some like what's happened with the Red Sox over the last 10 years, 8 years, between John Lester and, of course, depending on how things go with Xander and Devers. I mean, Xander and Devers haven't been as bad as John Lester has, but there just been times like, why are you lowballing these guys? Why are you screwing around with this? Why aren't you offering them fair market or a little above fair market to get these guys to come back? Because these are cornerstones of your franchise. And trust me, I'll get into plenty of them here in the coming weeks as we get closer to the after baseball season, after the postseason ends, and we can get into talking free agency and trades and all that. Trust me, we'll get into a lot of them, because, man, I'm a little nervous what's going to happen here. But anyways, with David Pastrnak, I think things aren't anywhere close to that. I think David wants to come back. The Bruins want him to come back. And I don't think that we're talking about a chasm of like $5 million that there's a difference. And remember, hockey contracts are going to be less than what you see coming out of other sports, because of the cap is a lot less than it is in all these other major sports. So I think for a guy like David Pastrnak, you got to look at guys like Matt Barzal and some other recent contracts that have signed here for in the neighborhood of $9 to $11 million, $12 million a year. I think if you give Pasta that 10 million a year contract, 11 million, I think that's definitely fair market value, because we're talking about a top five, a, top 10 to top 5 scorer in this league. You can't let him walk out the door. He's only 26, so he's smack dab in the middle of the prime and get plenty more left. You can't let him walk. And I think they will come to an agreement, because remember when they signed Charlie McAvoy, it was within the first week to 2 weeks of the regular season a couple of years ago when they inked him up. So I think he'll stay. It might take a little bit longer than we all had expected. I think some of us wanted this to be done before the season started, but I don't have it. I don't have a bad feeling about this like I have with some other contract extensions that have gone on. So I think they will end up getting this, and that obviously that's going to be a great boost here for the Bruins to be able to have Pasta locked up long term, because then there's another key piece that you can keep and that you have, and then it's just about adding other pieces around, getting some secondary scoring, and obviously getting some other younger pieces for this team. Now, obviously, to start this season, I mean, it's not. I think the Bruins are going to be right in the mix for again. Another wild card spot. I don't think they're going to end up winning the division, because they're in a loaded division. You got Toronto, Tampa, Florida. So I mean, it's definitely super loaded in this division. So it's going to be a tough one for the Bruins, kind of in the state that they are. Not that they're in a bad state, but or horrible state. But we're also talking about a Bruins team that's kind of in limbo, as far as you have some younger pieces, obviously in Pasta and in McAvoy, and of course Fabian Lysal, who ended up getting sent back down. There was some talk maybe he would be up here for the start of the regular season, but this is a situation where they have some good young pieces that are already up on the club. The minor leagues, Sweeney has not done a great job in drafting as of late. So we're talking about the Bruins trying to build from outside in, kind of at this point, unless they can start to really kind of turn this drafting around. And maybe Fabian Lysal will be that first wave, maybe that first one that kind of quells a little bit of it here. But of course, they're going to need more than just Lysal. So moving forward this year, like I said, we mentioned that they're without McAvoy and without Marchand till at least sometime in December, sometime in January at this point. So they're going to have to keep their head afloat for the next couple months, the first half of the season, basically, and kind of tread water and hope you stay in one of those in that third or fourth spot of the division, and kind of stay in that like 6th to 8th playoff spot until they get back. Then maybe you can catch a little bit of fire. So, I mean, obviously they still have Bergeron there. You did bring back David Krejci, although remember these guys are 36, 38, 39 here. Well, they're in their mid to late 30s, anywhere from 35 to 38 years old. So we're not talking about any spring chickens as far as in Krejci and Bergeron. But you still have them out there. So it's not like you lost Marchand and it's completely screwed. It's just kind of mixing and matching some of those lines to see what works until Marchand gets back. And you still have Jake DeBrusk, who did stick around because he signed that extension. So definitely it was the Cassidy thing. And of course, speaking of Cassidy, you kind of have to remember that you have Jim Montgomery, who this is his first year coaching the Bruins. Of course, remember he was the head coach of the Dallas Stars until he was let go for some incidences that he had with alcohol. But this is a guy that is a total different than what Cassidy was. So we'll see how things shape up here for the Boston Bruins, and if Montgomery is the right man for the job, and see how things kind of shake out. But remember, they still have they still have other pieces here, like besides Krejci and Bergeron. You still have Taylor Hall, who, again, Taylor Hall at this point in his career, we know what he is. He's a guy that has plenty of skill and talent there, and at times he flashes it, kind of like in 2018 when he won the Hart Trophy for the MVP of the NHL. So we know that type of performance is in there, but at this point, you're not relying on him to be that 2018 Hart Trophy winner as much as you would love him to be. But this is a guy where you have him on that second or third line, and you can depend on him to be a solid scorer, maybe solid scorer, solid playmaker. But again, you still need you still need some other pieces here, and this is again where maybe Lysol comes up later in the year and provides a little spark. I was kind of hoping to see, and maybe you put him on that second line and see what he can do with Pasta and Hall, or depending on how you want to mix and match, put him maybe with Krejci and with Pasta, whatever you want to do. But that'll be interesting. And of course, we're into in the second full year of Jeremy Swayman behind the net. And Linus Ullmark is still there as well. So you have a pretty goaltending tandem. So this is a situation where, again, you're kind of in limbo because you're still trying to go for it. And Don Sweeney said he's not going to blow anything up, along with Cam Neely. So we know that this team isn't going to rebuild per se, as far as by blowing it up. They might rebuild in some different ways, but they're still going to try to compete for this. Of course, when you bring back Bergeron and you bring back Krejci, you're not going to just say, screw it. Obviously, unless things go south. So we'll see how this kind of all shapes up here for the Boston Bruins as we move throughout the season. And I don't think this is a serious Stanley Cup contender, but I think this is a team that's capable. Now that you have Krejci back, and if you get something out of Lysol, I think this is something where you can get out of the second round. I mean, you can get out of the first round, make it in the second. So I don't think this is a one and done type of situation for the Bruins in the playoffs. But I do like what we have here for the season. It's going to be a solid club. It's going to be an entertaining year for this team. And if you're watching the game right now, you see something that I think is it's going to be a pretty good sign of things to come. And this might actually be pretty good. Sorry, it's hard to kind of watch and say and not say it because obviously I don't want the stream to get taken down. So just tune in, and see what's going on, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, I think the Bruins are going to be in that like third or fourth team in the division, but they're going to be right, like I said, as long as I think they'll be one like that sixth, somewhere between that 6th to 8th seed in the playoff bracket for the East. And this is, I don't think we're going to talk about one of those end of the bracket teams in the playoffs where it's just like, this team is not going to go anywhere. I think this is a team that don't overestimate them because they could make a little bit of noise. But like I said, I think at least they're going to be good enough to get out of that first round of the playoffs this year going forward. So now as we look at things here, we're going to look at our big bet of the week. And for this week's bet that we're going to take, we're going to bet on one game here that is going to be close to home, and that's going to be your New England Patriots versus the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns it's almost a pick'em game, but they are technically the favorites, as our friends over at DraftKings are showing. The Browns are favored on the money line, but only minus 140 to the Patriots plus 120. And it's only a 2.5 point spread in favor of the Browns. So they're not even getting that full 3, which usually it's if you're at home, usually you get that full 3. So I like it from this standpoint as far as the Patriots are technically the underdog here. So this is where I think you can make some money on this particular game because I don't I'm not I'm just not sold on the Cleveland Browns if we're going to be totally honest because again they have made some mistakes here late in games. They weren't able to close out the New York Jets, which I know the Jets aren't as putrid as they have been, but still again they've gone back to Zach Wilson, who I know he's got all that arm talent in the world, he's got the mobility, all that crap, but he's just has been um a turnover machine. So for them to not beat the Jets is just kind of embarrassing, if you ask me. But from this standpoint, I do feel comfortable as far as taking the Patriots in this game. And if you if you put about let's just say $40 down on this game, just on the straight over, on the straight money line and the over under. If you take the Patriots plus 125 plus the under of 43 and a half, that gives you a total payout of $164 on the day. And I feel comfortable with taking that and running with it because I do like I do think you can make some money off of this game taking the Pats. So all right, that's our big bet of the week. Now we get to a little bit of fantasy advice, and this week we're going to look at some waiver wire ads for you. Now, of course, there have been some big injuries lately. Now, the other one to go down at running back has been Kenneth Walker of the has been Rashad Penny. A little Freudian slip there because that's going to be who I'm going to recommend. But but Rashad Penny has gone down for a season-ending injury. So now it's going to be Kenneth Walker who is the next up on the board for the Seattle Seahawks. And remember, Kenneth Walker, it was the Doak Walker Award winner in college. And oh, sorry, that was Breece Hall, but Kenneth Walker was right up there with Breece Hall. And remember, Doak Walker is the best running back in college football. But Kenneth Walker he was a star at Michigan State. He was one of the better running. He and Breece Hall were my two favorite going into this draft as far as at running back. And he just shows some explosion. He had that 69-yarder against the Detroit Lions a couple weeks ago. Excuse me, last week against New Orleans. Sorry, my apologies. So he had that big run against New Orleans. He had the one touchdown. So this is a guy that has shown some promise. He's got all the talent in the world. And we all know Seattle, even though they've actually surprisingly been successful, have been very productive. So it wants to run the ball. So Kenneth Walker, I think he's better than Rashad Penny. And no diss on Rashad Penny because he actually has shown that he's finally living up to it after all the injuries and all the kind of some of the down seasons, that he actually was having a solid year. But Kenneth Walker could be a league winner if you grab him right now if he's still on a waiver. So take your fab money, spend it on Kenneth Walker, and you'll thank me later from that standpoint. Now, another Seattle product here is going to be, excuse me, that's going to be Geno Smith. And remember, Geno Smith, it was just a waste of time, waste of space out in New York after the Jets drafted him. It looked like he probably was just going to be a career backup and would never get another starting job again. But surprisingly, the Seattle Seahawks did stick around with Geno Smith, and he's actually turned into a very, very solid starter here for the Seattle Seahawks. Give me just a second here, folks. So Geno Smith on the year has 1,305 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 77 yards and 1 touchdown. So we're talking about a guy that is absolutely lighted on fire for the Seahawks. So if you're dealing with one of those injuries to a Dak Prescott out there, or and then you've kind of been playing that quarterback carousel, you weren't able to get Jared Goff after he was playing pretty well, then this might be a situation where you go to Geno Smith. And this is a guy that, just because of the way that the Seahawks have finally kind of opened it up, and we're talking about a Geno Smith that looks like he's doing his best Russell Wilson impersonation, that I think that you can actually trust him moving forward. And I know I want to look at myself sideways after saying you can trust Geno Smith, but I honestly think you can. So this is a guy that if you go to Geno Smith, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And then once you get your starting quarterback back, if it's a Dak Prescott out there, or if maybe it's an underperforming veteran or an underperforming rookie, or if you're still trying to dig out from taking Trey Lance after screwing yourself on that one, then maybe you go to Geno Smith and you get lucky and you bail yourself out. So I love that pick as far as Geno Smith is concerned. Now, the wide receiver market, that's a little bit thinner because, of course, depending on the leagues that you're in, you probably the top rookie wide receivers have been taken, or really kind of not in any great situation as far as the waiver pool is concerned for wide receivers. I'm not huge on bringing in Randall Cobb, just because I think Randall Cobb is more of just a kind of dart throw at this point in time. But if you had to take one of these wide receivers that's out there and that's available, if one guy that might get some looks here, because if you're looking for like a week to 2 week kind of fill in dart throw type of guy that's better than Randall Cobb, and I would go with Diami Brown, who had those 2 huge receptions, had 102 yards receiving and the 2 touchdowns last week. Now, obviously, is he going to do the same thing this week? Probably not, but this is again a guy that, as bad as the Commanders been, and Carson Wentz has come back down to earth a little bit, they still have been able to pop off with these wide receivers from time to time. And now that Jahan Dotson is out, the promising young rookie who is on his way to good things, he's out for at least this week, for a second week. So I think this is where Diami Brown could be that third option, maybe second option, depending on, because it seems like they, as good as Terry McLaurin is, it just kind of feels like they fall in and out of love with him this season as far as Carson Wentz is concerned. And Curtis Samuel has been the one kind of consistent guy that's kind of been in there for this Commanders team. So I think if you're looking for a dart throw wide receiver, go with Diami Brown, put him in your flex, or if you have 3 wide receivers, maybe put him in that spot if you're really desperate looking for something. So I think that can be something that you can maybe not lean on, but you can feel okay with going in that standpoint, just because Washington has at least shown that they're viable with supporting 3 wide receivers this year. All right, so that is our waiver wire ads for your fantasy picks of the week. And that's going to do it for our show this week. I hope you enjoyed everything here. Of course, remember to join us next week. We will break down that game against the Cleveland Browns. Of course, we will still be on Zappe watch to see how he does. And if and maybe Mac Jones, if he's able to come back next week. We'll see. We'll keep you all up to date what's going on with this quote unquote quarterback controversy. We'll keep you abreast of everything. Of course, we'll get you ready for the big Monday night showdown with the Chicago Bears. Oh boy. Ooh, I'm sure ESPN is kicking themselves now for having this one. Oh boy. I mean, if you had Mac Jones, that might have saved you, but oh boy, that's gonna be a decent one. It's gonna be a scary one for those ratings for ESPN. But anyway, regardless, though, we'll get you ready for that Patriots and Bears game, and of course, it will be full go into the Bruins season. Get you ready for basketball as well, and if anything pops off with Xander Bogaerts or any of their players, we'll keep you up to date. And of course, as you know, you can always every Wednesday night from 8 o'clock, as long as there's no stupid technical difficulties here. We stream the show every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. And of course, if you want to follow and send any questions in on the live chat, you can always do so. And remember to hit the like and subscribe button on YouTube. And of course, if you want to follow the show on any of the social media accounts, you can follow show at NE Sports Weekly on Twitter. And then on Instagram, remember we have a new Instagram account. You can go to NE Sports WK, give the show a follow there. And then, of course, you can follow me on any of my personals at Sean_Met28 on Instagram and on Twitter, and send me any questions there. And of course, if you can't follow the show live, don't worry, folks. It is a podcast for a reason. You can download it at any time and follow us on Spotify or SoundCloud. Just search New England Sports Weekly, and you can listen at your leisure. All right, everybody. Well, you have a good rest of your week.